Morning, everybody. I think you should be able to find this chapter. Just go to the very beginning. So I'm reading from Genesis 1 from verse 1 to verse 26. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. God called the vault sky. And there was evening and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times, and days and years, and let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the fourth day. And God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky." So God created the great creatures of the sea, and every living thing with which the water teems, and that moves about in it, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind." Excuse me. And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." This is the word of the Lord.
Well, can I add my welcome to that of Alice? My name is Tim, and I'm the senior minister here. It's a great pleasure to be able to open up Genesis with you. It's such a significant book. Thanks, Marion, for reading. Thanks, Dennis, for reading as well. Normally we have a question and comment time after the sermon, but I just wondered whether I could just throw it back to you for a moment. Just shout out, what do you notice about what comes out of these first 26 verses? Anything strike you? There's no right or wrong answers here, it's just what strikes you.
Tim, in the first verses, it says that there's a light, let there be light. But then later, about halfway through, then it starts to introduce the sun.
Right, day 4. The sun only comes along on day 4. Right, interesting, isn't it?
What's that first light?
Right,
Oh, it's there.
yeah.
Everything was good.
Everything was good, except for day 2. But go on.
When man was created.
Then it was very good. And we'll see that later on. Dennis, yeah.
Each section starts with, and God said, and then later on, and it was so. And so you just have this word for each institute. Except for the creation
So except for the creation
of man.
of man.
It's all logical because you can't have plants if there's no land, you can't have fish if there's no sea, and so on.
Well, yeah, there's a few things that are a bit out of order to how we normally think. Yeah. Murray.
Us.
Whoa. It's let there be and then let us, yeah?
What says that there's going to be 2 lights, the sun and then the moon? The moon itself is not a light, it reflects the sun.
Right.
Translation thing, or is that what it says?
Well, that's what he said. And I think that alerts us to kind of how the language works. It's from a particular point of view. Yep. Good observation. Yeah.
One of my favourite bits is in the beginning, God.
Right. You could stop there and have said something really very significant. Yep. Yeah.
Always according to their kind.
According to their kind. Yeah. Look, we could kind of go on for a while, couldn't we? Let me try and take us somewhere. But first of all, Signal, I reckon this is there's no issue really we can think about together that doesn't in some way come back to this chapter, right? And at the same time, as we've already started to explore, this chapter is really subversive of the things that we just naturally think, right? Or the things that we've heard, or the things that we've accepted, or the things we believe without having necessarily thought about them. And I just want to get that out of the way. This series in Genesis, I reckon, is subversive of what we naturally think. And we just got to realise that this book is going to address far deeper questions than I think we are normally ready for. Who am I? What is my life about? How do I live my life from day to day? And I don't want to bore you with numbers, but actually, even in the details of the text, there's so much more than we kind of realise. For example, in the original, the number 7 is really important. Like the name of God is referred to a multiple of 7 times. 5 times 7, 35 times in this account of the first 7 days. You notice that? We just don't notice that kind of stuff, do we? The heavens are referred to 21 times, 7 times 3. And in the Hebrew, in the first sentence, there's 7 words. You know how many in the second verse? Second sentence? 14. And when you get to day 7, there are 3 sentences each of 7 days. There's just all this stuff going on that, in one sense, the problem's going to be with me, because how am I going to ever get across what the passage is on about, really? Like all the amazing stuff. And also the problem's with you, right? Because you'll need to kind of let things lodge in your brain and be ready to be transformed by this passage. I think, we're all facing kind of a big uphill struggle at the moment. But point blank, what's on display here is kind of what Delia pointed to. The supreme, magisterial, effortless power of God. That's what's on display. And there's lots of lovely details, and we've started to look at some of them, but I think there's one main point for the section we're going to look at. And I hope I can get away with this. I'm just going to mention 4 of the things that I noticed, and then we'll get to the main point, okay? So it's kind of a bit like golf. 4 practice swings, and then we'll hit the ball. Okay? Right? So 4 things that I noticed, and we might like to talk about other things afterwards. We do have a kind of an outline up there. It's not about the how, really. It's about the why and the why. First thing to notice is very obvious. The way that God creates through his word. Go to verse 9, day 3. And God said, let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear, and it was so. God called the dry ground land, and he gathered the waters, and they were called seas. He called them seas, and God saw that it was good. And then God said, let the land, etc., etc. And what you see here is, God doesn't use a tool to make things. He doesn't, make a big cosmic shovel for himself and create the world. He speaks. And it happens. And what that means is this: the basic way that God relates to his world is through his word. Right? That's what this is showing us. One of the reasons why, as we meet together week by week, right at the centre of what we do is to read and pray through and study God's word. And it comes right from the start here in the Bible, doesn't it? The connection between God and his world is by his word. And that's why, although God made both the ear and the eye, we are people of the ear authoritatively. God is present with us and made known to us authoritatively through his word. He is the God of images as well. Think about the palette on which he paints a sunset every day. That changes every moment. And it's different from wherever you're standing on the earth. So think about the amazing creativity in terms of the eye. God's God of that as well. But that's the outworking of his word. There's an asymmetric relationship between word and vision. So that's the first point. God creates by his word. Secondly, the earth's good. The world that God has made is good. You see it there repeated. And that means, first of all, it's not an accident. You might like to think of people who believe these alternatives, that the world's just an accident, or the world's an illusion, it's not really real, or it's evil, the world is a bad place, or something else. No, the world that God made is good. And I don't know whether you've ever thought about this, but every time in this passage, God steps back and evaluates what he's done, and he says it's good, except when he says it's very good. And that doesn't mean it's morally upright. It means it's fit for purpose. It's beautiful. It's exactly what I want it to be. And I reckon that tells us something extraordinary about God. He delights in delight, right? This God is not a dry, unfeeling, removed one that we can't relate to. He delights in delight. Thirdly, the creation shaped by a week. And Jerry noticed one of the issues with that. I don't need to remind you that Christians differ on how we understand these 7 days in creation. Some believe there are literal 7 days, and others 24-hour periods, and others 7 long million-year geological times. There's a bunch of major views, right? So I'm not going to tell you all the other views. I'm just going to tell you my view, and we can talk about it afterwards. My own view is that the 6 days can't be literal solar days. Precisely because the sun wasn't made until day 4. Right? To me, that's a knockdown argument. And when we come to day 7, right, there's no evening and morning, right? Which means we're still in day 7. Right? On the other hand, I don't think that we can tie the 6 days to any shifting scientific paradigm. I just don't think it's honest to try and harmonise Genesis 1 with evolution. Because, for example, the trees are made on when? Which day? Day 3, before the marine organisms. That's right. Now, that's not the order in evolutionary theory. And the birds. The birds are made before insects. And the trees are made before insects. It just doesn't work. The sun's on day 4 again, after the trees. And I just don't think you can coerce Genesis 1 into either a 7-day literalistic view or in harmony with evolution in some way. And the reason I think that is because if you try to do either of those things, you're not listening to what Genesis is trying to tell us. You miss the point of what God's saying in Genesis 1. The point of this passage is not to provide a linear chronology, mathematical chronology, but to reveal God's plan of how all things relate to him. And to move us towards God's purpose in creation, the seventh day relationship with him. And we'll deal with that in good time, but not today. See, what's happening here is much deeper and wider and bigger than just a geometric chronology. God uses the structure of the week, I think, to order time and space in human life to bring us to the joy of experiencing him on the seventh day. And that's three things. Can I just try my luck with the fourth thing? My worry is I'm going to lose people because it's kind of about numbers again. Let me try it. The fourth thing is these 7 days, and we're really looking at the first 6 days today. The 7 days are not flat consecutive days. Let me try and illustrate what I'm talking about. There's 2 triplets. And days 1, 2 and 3 perfectly match days 4, 5 and 6. Did you notice that as we were reading through? What's going on in days 1 to 3? God is forming the world. Then in days 4 to 6, he's filling the world. Did you notice that? I've got a few pictures that hopefully help us to see the, what's going on. What happens on day 1? Divides light and darkness. Right? God said, verse 3, let there be light, and there was light, and God saw the light was good. He separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and there was evening, and there was morning the first day. See, the Bible begins with light but no sun, and it ends with light and no sun. Did you notice that in Revelation as well? Right? And here's the key. Here, God separates light from darkness. That doesn't happen just kind of naturally, does it? Right? You've got to intervene to separate light and darkness. You've got to have a source of light. But God does that here. He separates darkness and light. When we come to day 4 with the sun and the moon and the stars, very interesting. They're not gods, which lots of the cultures around them thought, the sun and the moon and the stars, they control our destiny. But astrology is just rubbish, okay? Now, what about day 2? Again, God said, verse 6, let there be a vault between the waters to separate the water from the water. So God made the vault and separated. It's talking about the sky, right? They think there's lots of water above the sky and below. And God called the vault sky, and there was evening, morning, the second day. And on day 3, what does God do? What does he make? He creates dry ground and gathered the waters together and then makes seed. There's plants and things, vegetation, seed-bearing plants. And here's the point. Again, stay with me. If somebody is going to sleep near you, it's okay to kind of do that kind of thing in love, right? The separations serve one kind of God's order. It's a way of God ordering. They create distinctions. God is shaping the world. He's introducing this and not that kinds of thing, distinction, right? So there's no confusion. And that's why every time God makes something, it happens each according to its own kind. You might have noticed that. And it's why God names things that he creates. He names the light day and the darkness night to show that both darkness as well as light are under his sovereign rule and control. They're both his. He separated them. It's so important. And there are lots of implications. This sermon is not a normal sermon. Don't base your preaching style on this sermon because it's mixed up and messy. And I've got applications right now, okay? Firstly, for science. Just have a think. This is very important because some people say, hasn't science disproved Genesis? Right? You've heard that? And I want to say, it's just the other way around. Science is only possible because of what Genesis tells us. See, it's only if there's an ordered world that science makes sense. If the world is an accident, then what does any scientist do trying to inquire into order in the world? Right? There's no expectation that there would be order. But the world is not irrational or random. The reason is what Genesis says. God has made it this way. It's regular and predictable because of the boundaries that the Creator's made. And the scientific method can produce a whole bunch of great outcomes, but it can't begin to answer the questions that it needs to succeed. For example, why is there something rather than nothing? Right? Genesis answers that question, but science can't answer it. So there's one application. Science proceeds because of what Genesis says. Secondly, suffering. This is very, very important for anybody who is suffering, or maybe you're planning to suffer sometime in the future. And it might be external circumstances or something in your heart, but it's very important. Keep your finger in Genesis and turn over to Job chapter 38. It's on page 538. Just a moment. Remember the extraordinary suffering of Job? Job 38, page 538. His physical, mental, family suffering, emotional suffering. He's abused by his wife. For 35 chapters, Job's friends have gathered around him, and they're doing things like sending, care emoticons and little kind of heart stickers to him. And Job wants to die. And before chapter 38, he yells out at God, "What use is it to believe in you when you cannot protect me from this agonising suffering? Physical, excruciating pain. I'm scraping my body with broken pot. That's how bad it is. I've kept myself from sin. My body's deformed. I've lost my children. I've kept myself from sin. Where's it got me? What use is faith in you?" That's what's gone on before chapter 38, right? And in chapter 38, God gently and wonderfully answers Job. And the essence of God's answers are this: I've put boundaries in place. Now look at chapter 38, verse 4. God says to Job, where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set? Who laid its cornerstone while the morning stars sang together and the angels shouted for joy? Who shut up the sea behind its doors when it burst forth from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment and wrapped it in thick darkness, when I fixed limits for it and set its doors and bars in place, when I said, "This far you may come and no farther, here is where your proud waves halt," and on through the chapter it goes. This is very important for anybody suffering. See, the thing about suffering is it makes you feel alone and fearful that there's no limits. This is never going to end. It's out of your control. And God says to the darkness and to the ocean, I've put my boundaries in place. And he says that as well as the light, right? I put my boundaries in place. There's nothing beyond my control. And the flood might come, the fire might come, but we're still under God's control. He's there in the darkness, naming and ruling and bounding. There's no place we can go. There's nothing that can happen. It may take our life, but there's nowhere that takes us beyond God's sovereign word of grace. You see how important this is for everyday life. Back to Genesis 1. See, Genesis 1 is about God setting boundaries. This is what the world is like. And the last day, very quickly, the last day is about God setting blessing as the reason for the order and the boundary. And at the heart of it's verse 28, God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that lives on the ground." And the word blessing is kind of a funny word that we Christians use, really for some vague thing that's nice and has got to do with God. Isn't that how we use it? I've actually discovered that some people, now correct me if you're South African, but I've noticed that some South African people, when they say bless, what they really mean is, "You idiot," right? Someone does something really dumb and they say, "Bless," or "bless." Is that right? Okay, you can confess later on. It's very similar in the deep south of the US, actually. But what blessing means here is to fill with potential for life. So day 6, where are we up to there? I think we'll get there eventually. Day 6. God takes the creatures that he's made. Took me a long time to work that out. They're already good, and he places them in the boundaries that he's created that are good, and he blesses them with the potential of life-giving and blessing. And part of the blessing for us humans is to be made in the image of God. We're going to look at that next week or the week after. But do notice, God's blessing happens right in the middle of what we'd call natural processes. See, the other thing is going on here is that God's blessing, right, happens here in this physical world. Here's the place of God's blessing. Right? God's blessing isn't kind of in some other place, some other world, right? Way out there beyond the planet Plunket or whatever, you know. It's in this life, in this world. And life itself is a gift from God. Life's never neutral. And that's got all kinds of medical implications. Thank you for indulging me in that fourth point. We've now come to the point where I want to just kind of make it simple, and we've kind of, you know, there's a few pictures there to help you with it. But here's our point, the one point. And that is that the blessing God's given, he's given within his boundaries. Henri Blocher is a French theologian. He visited Australia some decades ago. He wonderfully points out that the basic impulse of pagan religion is to reject what God has done and revealed in Genesis 1. It's to do exactly the opposite of what God did with the formless and empty world. See, religions without this creation narrative have got a longing to dissolve difference and to mix everything up together. So, a couple of big words coming up, pantheism and panentheism. So Buddhism and Hinduism are examples of religions that think that either the whole thing is God or God is in particular things. Animism, you know, you might have heard of God's being in rocks and stones and trees and things, right? Those kinds of religions don't have this creation narrative. God is part of the world. If you think about going to Japan, you'll be invited, if you go to see Mount Fuji, you'll be invited to not just look at Mount Fuji, but to worship Mount Fuji. Think about the way pagan religion works. You take the categories of creation and you break them open and cross them so that it releases spiritual energy. I mean, that's what the sexual act in pagan religion is all about. It's a way to rejuvenate the world. That's what's going on in the Old Testament with all the Baal worshipping that takes place up on the high places. Okay? I can explain that to you a little bit later, but the kids are here at the moment, so I won't do it now. Self-harm, it happens on the top of the mountain with Elijah when there's the prophets of Baal. They're trying to get Baal's attention. And Elijah makes fun of them, saying he's not listening to you. He must be at the toot, right? So they start cutting themselves to try and get his attention, right? It takes the body and inflicts pain. It does what shouldn't be done so that some powerful being will take notice. And although our culture might be secular, it is also allergic to the idea of limitations and boundaries. And it says life and blessing cannot possibly be inside the boundaries that God has set. Life and blessing, the good life, can only be found by breaking out. This isn't the only place that talks about blessing happening in the world that God's made according to the boundaries that he's set. Again, just keep your finger in Genesis and turn over to Isaiah 45. I don't have the page number for that one, but Isaiah is a big book in the middle of the Bible, and chapter 45 is about page 732, verse 18 and 19. Isaiah 45, verse 18 and 19. This is what the Lord says. And again, it goes back to creation. He who created the heavens, he's God. He who fashioned and made the earth, he founded it. He didn't create it to be empty, but formed it to be inhabited. You see there the boundaries that we see in Genesis 1, right, are being recalled. So this is saying, okay, the world that God's formed in the particular form that he's formed it, right, He's saying, I did that. There's no one else who does that. No one else can do that. And I haven't spoken in secret from somewhere in a land of darkness. I haven't said to Jacob's descendants, seek me in vain. I, the Lord, speak the truth. I declare what's right. And the context is God expects the world to be fruitful in the world that he's made. You see, life and limits belong together. God does not say, seek me however you want. Seek me in the chaos. By the way, when I'm speaking about boundaries here, really important to notice that human cultures make boundaries, race and class and nation, which I think are arbitrary. They're not built into creation. And I reckon lots of those boundaries ought to be just jumped across, by the way, right? I'm talking about the boundaries that God has made. They're the things within which God reveals himself. And this is tied to a later concept in the Bible called holiness. The word holy is to be separate, to be different. That's why God blesses the seventh day. But we've got to the point where I just want to finish. All right? Finish by looking at creation in the New Testament. When we open the New Testament, we read these words in John 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind, of me, of you. In Genesis 1, God sets the boundaries by speaking. He sets the place of blessing by speaking. And now as we come to the New Testament, what we find is that the Lord of the Sabbath has come, the one for whom all creation was made. Colossians says all things were made for him and through him. And that means we can't understand creation ultimately without understanding him. And also we can't understand him without understanding creation. And Jesus comes bringing the blessing of God, which we lost. And we'll see that in a few weeks' time. And what we see is that eternal blessing is found in the boundaries that Jesus sets. The invitation is for any person to come to him. It's universal in one sense. On the other hand, it's limited. See, on the one hand, it's limitless what Jesus offers. It doesn't matter what you've done, how you've ignored God, how you've worshipped in his place the things that he's made. What a great affront to God. But at the same time, what the blessing that Jesus offers is restricted to those who hear his voice and believe in the one who sent him. And I want to finish with two questions. One, see, I wouldn't want anyone who's here to miss out on what God is doing. All of us have responded to God in some kind of way. But I want to ask you, have you responded to the one who's made all things and made the limits of our lives, not just in a general way, but with the depths of your soul? See, this world won't last. It had a beginning. It'll have an end. Even our best efforts won't endure. We do not truly bring new beginnings. Only he does. And he'll bring those new beginnings whether or not you are on board. See, in Revelation, Jesus says, I'm the first and the last. I'm the Alpha and the Omega. In the last couple of chapters of the Bible, I'm making all things new. Only he brings true new beginnings. And the question is, have you made peace with him? Because if you haven't, well, you've got a problem. Because he's God and you're not. So don't leave here today without having done something about that. Without getting to the point where you know you've got peace with God. And if you're not sure how to make that happen, ask the person that you came with, or ask me, or use the QR code, which we'll see a bit later on. But secondly, if you have got to that point where you've got peace with God, don't let your awe at what God has done and what he's doing, don't let that slip away. Don't feed the things that steal away your awe of him. We've seen something quite special in Genesis 1, I reckon. You see, the thing that follows on from it is that if God is the creator, and if the Spirit is with us, then he's able to do far more than we can ask or imagine, no matter who we are. But we very easily feed the things that steal awe of him. I do. We let things build up in our lives that really distract us from him and what he's doing. And I just wonder whether we need something like the cause of the smoke that we've lived with this week. You've had those hazard reduction burns, right? Some of us are much closer than others, but, it's been horrible and yet necessary. And I wonder whether sometimes we need to take a frank look at our lives and get rid of the things that draw us away from the awe that we ought to have of this God. And maybe at morning tea, that's what you need to talk about. Talk with a trusted friend about the kinds of things that are in your life that distract you from him. What sucks away your awe of him. Genesis is a wonderful place for us to start this term. And I think we need to take courage from these subversive truths and act on them and pray so they become part of the deep foundation of our lives, so that we might be a blessing to the people around about us who have no idea. They have no idea how the world works. They have no idea about how you can be confident about the future. They have no idea how to endure suffering that feels like it's got no end. We need to pray that these words become part of the deep foundation of our lives. And we need to pray that we don't limit what God is going to do to the boundaries that we invent, but need to be busted. Instead, we ought to pray and do what's truly new, saying with the Apostle Paul, to him who by the power at work within us is able to do more abundantly than all we can ask or imagine, to him be glory in the church and in Jesus Christ to all generations, forever and ever. Amen. What do we do now? I have no idea. I go into completely different mind space. We're going to sing a song. There we go. And then. Hi, I'm Tim Mildenhall. I'm the Senior Minister here at St John's Asquith. We're a group of ordinary people who've come to know the extraordinary love of Jesus. And so what that means is we think everybody matters. I'm not sure what's brought you online today, but I'm glad you're here. Please feel free to get in touch with us. We've got a bunch of services. We'd love to see you in person. Welcome.